serving as the co-anchor for us today, Ms. Kalia Tanner. Kalia Tanner is a Dillard University political science major. She's been on the program before, and she's from Sacramento, California. This is one of the last of her 4-year sojourn here in the city of New Orleans. And greetings and welcome. How you been?
Hey, Dr. Clark, how's it going? Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, yeah, it's always outstanding when you come. And today we're going to talk about the Louisiana State Legislature. Next week we have the beginning of the session, and this is a splendid opportunity for you in your position as chair of the Democratic Caucus to let us know what we should expect from the caucus itself, from the legislature itself, and also in terms of some personal bills that you may introduce, which you deem to be quite important for our community. And so, if you can just talk about the general climate right here in the state. Yes.
Sure. Right now, I'm encouraged, Dr. Clark, I have to tell you, and I want to thank everybody in the city of New Orleans who showed up to vote a couple of weekends ago. Those 4 constitutional amendments failed across the state. 90% of New Orleans opposed all 4 of those amendments. Dr. Clark, can you think of any other issue that 90% of the city of New Orleans would agree upon?
Absolutely not. It was amazing.
It was truly amazing. So I feel a little bit of encouragement heading into session, which starts on Monday. Last year was tough. We were in session for 7 months out of the year. We had like 3 or 4 special sessions. So this session is 2 months long. It's a fiscal session, so the focus is typically around the budget and taxation. But as you know, as you're well aware, there'll be a lot of issues top of mind for my colleagues as well as for the people of Louisiana, like insurance, the teacher pay raise. There's going to be a lot of moving parts for this session that starts next week.
And before I let Kalia chime in, I'd like for you to tell us, what do you account for this overwhelming 90% rate in terms of having individuals vote against those 4 amendments?
I think there's a lot that contributed to that. Number one, a lot of things happening at the federal level are upsetting people across the board. People who voted for Kamala Harris, people who voted for Donald Trump are upset right now with the status of the United States of America, as well as with the economy. And so I think people are starting to wake up and wanting to get more involved. As far as those 4 amendments go, I mean, you had 4 amendments that, to me, were bad. I tried to kill those in session so the people would not have to vote on those. But each of those amendments had their own contingency of opposition. And so unlike what we typically see, where organizations oppose this amendment because it's bad to their cause, they decided the most effective strategy was to organize together and organize a campaign to vote no against all 4. And I think that movement, that decision was the turning point, and I think that's why you saw so many people in Louisiana vote them down. Dr. Clark, I think only 14 parishes approved those amendments, the largest one being St. Tammany, and the amendments barely passed in St. Tammany. So I think that strategy was effective, and I thought it was brilliant.
Well, that's a blueprint. Yes. Kalia?
Yeah, I work as a democracy fellow and as a member of Andrew Goodman Foundation on campus. So our main jobs in that role is to encourage students to vote and help them, take on civic engagement and get excited about it. And we mimic that same strategy that we saw, like the Power Coalition and other voting, entities in Louisiana pushing, is just vote no on all 4 because the legalese can be so convoluted sometimes. And it was very encouraging to see success in that because we were just let down and a bit discouraged after the election results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one thing as chair of the Democratic caucus in the House in Louisiana, I think one thing Democrats typically struggle with is messaging that is easily digestible. We're a big tent party, so our messaging runs across the spectrum, but it's hard for voters to remember that, right? So for this campaign, a simple message saying vote no to all 4 and with a quick bullet point of why each constitutional amendment was bad for Louisiana was very effective. The messaging was short, it was simple, it was easy to remember, and the vote ended up reflecting that.
Well, absolutely. And I know there's a number of issues which become important, and some of them we can highlight if that's okay with you. The teacher pay, which also was part of the amendments.
Yes.
And the teacher pay and the insurance. You could talk about teacher pay, insurance, and
sure.
And these are some bills that you are
so on the teacher pay front, Constitutional Amendment 2 was going to pay down debt related to the teachers' retirement system of Louisiana early. So by paying down that debt early, you would have savings from not having to make interest payments. The savings were based on how much a school district pays into that retirement system. As we know in New Orleans, we have a system that is essentially all charter. In many of our schools, I think most of our schools do not pay into that teacher's retirement system. And so New Orleans would not have realized the savings to give the teachers a $2,000 pay raise and support staff a $1,000 pay raise. And there were other districts in the state that wouldn't have been able to fund that entire pay raise. Typically, how we give teachers a pay raise is by including that funding increase in the MFP, the Minimum Foundation Program. So historically, when the legislature wants to give the teachers a pay raise, the extra money, which is about $200 million, to give teachers a $2,000 pay raise and support staff a $1,000 pay raise, it's about $200 million. That extra money would go straight into the MFP, and that is their new pay rate moving forward. That is not what Amendment 2 sought to do. And so it was kind of like a cloak and dagger situation to me, right? Yeah. It's not how we do teacher pay raises. So myself and members of my caucus will be advocating for teachers to get a pay raise this year. At a minimum, we need to retain the stipend that teachers received for the last 2 years.
The stipend.
Yes. So the last 2 years, the teachers have received that $2,000 stipend, support staff a $1,000 stipend. We'll be advocating for that. The initial budget proposed by the governor did not have that increase, which means that we have to come up with a way to find $200 million to make sure the teachers get that stipend. We can do it. I mean, one thing the governor proposed in his budget is an additional $50 million to the LA Gator Money Follow the Kid program, which is like the expansion of the voucher program. He's proposing to put $50 million on top of what we would normally put for the voucher program. So to me, that's $50 million off top that goes toward the teacher pay raise.
Yes. And also in terms of the insurance, I know that that's another bill that you're interested in. Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. So this will be a big fight, this issue, and you're going to see some strange alliances this session. So basically, Commissioner Temple, Commissioner of Insurance, wants to reform on the automobile insurance side. He wants to reform it by making it harder for people like you and me to file a claim against their insurance company. They want to limit how much we can collect from a claim. They want to make certain information inadmissible in court. Last year, they passed a law that says you can't name your insurance company in a lawsuit. The reason they did that is because when you go before a jury is more likely to award a lesser amount if they think I'm suing Dr. Clark instead of State Farm Insurance Company. Okay, so this year you're going to see that push, and you're going to have the commissioner, and it seems like Governor Landry is going to be on the opposite side of that. So it'll be very interesting. For me, we need affordable insurance rates for homeowners and for automobile. We have to make solutions, come up with solutions that favor the people, not the industry. And that is where I've voted. That is legislation that I've carried over the last 6 years, because it is a crisis right now. The homeowners insurance market is just as bad. I passed a bill that says if you get the fortified roof, your insurance company has to give you that reduction on your premium, which is great. This year, I'm working with a senator to say if you purchase a fortified roof, you're eligible for a tax credit up to $10,000. Fortified roof is like one of the few things you can do in Louisiana as a homeowner to reduce your insurance premium.
Now, would it matter what in your bill? Would that matter what zip code?
No.
Okay,
no.
Across the board
as
for
long
the entire
as
state.
as
Okay.
long as you have a certified fortified roof on your home, and you can prove you purchased it, you submit that to the Department of Revenue, and you would be eligible for a tax credit to reduce your tax liability for state taxes.
And that's awesome. Yes, Kalia.
I honestly am not.
Yeah.
I'm young. I'm not a
Yeah.
homeowner, so I don't have much to add to that conversation. But are there any bills that you're pushing forward in the upcoming session that you're like very excited about or that you're most passionate about?
Yeah, there's
All
a
right.
couple. There's a couple. One that I'm working on. So last year, the Bessie Board, State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, removed a requirement that students in Louisiana have to apply for FAFSA before graduating. So we had a rule that said before you graduate, you got to apply for FAFSA, TOPS, or request a waiver that you don't want to apply for either one because you don't intend on going to college. Bessie removed that requirement. And just in a year, what we have seen in Louisiana is the percentage of our students graduating from high school this year applying for FAFSA has significantly reduced. It's significantly lower. Louisiana had, percentage-wise, one of the highest rates of students applying for FAFSA upon graduation, and now we're like middle of the pack. We might be around 23 or 24 in the state rankings. So this year I have a bill. Actually, let me back up real quick. A couple years ago, we added to the curriculum that schools must teach the kids about financial literacy. Okay, so this year I have a bill that would say, as part of that financial literacy curriculum, that they also have to educate the kids about FAFSA and other scholarship and grant opportunities that they can use to pay and attend college. The problem is we have so many kids that are poor. They're coming from poor families in Louisiana because we're a poor state. A lot of these kids don't have college on their radar because they think it's just unattainable because of the cost. But if a kid applies for FAFSA or TOPS and finds out that, oh, I can get money to actually go to college, now all of a sudden what they thought was unattainable is realistic, and they can actually make it happen and become, another college student, perhaps a first generational college student in their family. So that one I'm very excited about right now. I have a tax credit bill related to the earned income tax credit, which is for working families. You have to work in order to receive this earned income tax credit. It's applied to your federal taxes. Louisiana has a state earned income tax credit as well. It's at 5% of your federal credit right now. I have a bill that would double it to 10%. So I'm very excited about that one too. And also I'm working on a bill that would create a child tax credit. So Dr. Clark, you remember during President Biden's administration when he expanded the child tax credit, it lifted so many children out of poverty throughout this country. Just expanding that and increasing the payments for the child tax credit lifted so many kids in this country out of poverty. And it actually, Louisiana, I think about a third of our kids grew up in poverty. It significantly reduced that number for a couple of years.
And we're talking black and white. It's not restricted to the African-American community by any means.
No, because if you look at poverty rates in Louisiana, I mean, you got poor black families, poor white families, poor Hispanic families. It cuts across the board. So I'm excited about this child tax credit too, because that'll help a lot of struggling families in the state of Louisiana. And then finally, I have a bill to increase the homestead exemption. So again, Kalia, I know you said you're young and didn't fully understand thank you for everything you're doing, by the way, the insurance front. But one of the biggest issues going on in our state, especially South Louisiana, especially New Orleans, is the cost of home ownership right now is increasingly becoming unaffordable. Property taxes, homeowners insurance, they're really high right now. And so I have a bill that would propose to increase the homestead exemption. Right now it's $75,000. It was set to that during the 70s, Dr. Clark. If you go back and look at the average price of a sold home in New Orleans in the country since the 70s, it's increased about tenfold.
And $75,000 would not value very much,
no.
Especially in New Orleans. After Katrina,
yes.
It alone, then go north of I-10, then you really have
exactly. And since the 70s, the average price of a sold home has increased like tenfold, right? So I have a bill that would increase it from 75 to 150. So I'm excited about that. 125. So I'm excited about that one too.
As opposed to those who want to eliminate the homestead exemption altogether.
Well, yeah,
which is considered the third rail.
And look, I know you follow the legislature. you come up there a lot. You are familiar with those conversations. There was an effort to eliminate the homestead exemption last year. Thankfully, that never caught traction, and we were able to stop that. But I mean, that would just decimate Louisiana. It would certainly hurt the city of New Orleans.
And I know we talked earlier. Some things you may do something related to to
Yes.
guns. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm actually working with the city of New Orleans. Last year, as y'all probably all recall, permitless carry was approved by the legislature, which means you do not have to have the permit to conceal carry your handgun. At the same time, during the regular session last year, there was a bill that was passed that basically said local governments cannot have any restrictions on firearm access and safety and regulations that were more stringent than the state level. It basically preempted local governments from handling, firearms and gun policies. So I have a bill this session that would create a misdemeanor penalty for the negligent storage of a firearm in a home or in a car. And the reason I'm doing that is because, as you're probably aware, firearms are one of the leading causes of death of children, and the rates are even higher here in the state of Louisiana. So we need to get serious about responsible gun storage in our homes, in our vehicles. We've had accidents all throughout the state where a child was on a back seat and there was a gun on the back seat. The child picked it up and shot himself. So this bill would create a misdemeanor penalty and a fine if negligent storage of a firearm occurred and a child accessed the gun and harmed themselves or someone else.
Now, I do want, and that's absolutely fantastic, and I do want Khalil to chime in, but before she does, I want you to just talk to us and to our listening audience in general about the role that you serve as chair of the Democratic Caucus in the legislature, and how it works and how many members that you have, and in terms of making them work and establishing a game plan, a war plan, before when you go into the legislature.
Yeah. So it's a tough job. I knew it would be tough when I took on the responsibility, but it's a very important job, especially with the dynamics in Baton Rouge right now. Our caucus has currently 31 members. There's one vacancy that one of our members did have, Larry Selders. He moved on to the Senate, and so there's an election right now to replace him. So that would put us at 32. There's 105 members in the House. A super majority, a veto-proof majority, you need 70. And we have 32. So there are 73 Republicans in the legislature. So the numbers are always against us. It's always difficult for us to pass bills, even simple bills, right? But the people of Louisiana need to know that there's somebody who's always going to have their back, who's always going to stand up for their children, for their families, for everything that they need for their quality of life in Louisiana. And I view my role as chairperson of the Democratic Caucus to make sure that happens, essentially enabling that to occur. And so it's a lot of work, Doc. Every 100%. Night, every night I'm reviewing the bills that we go on the floor, that are going to the floor the next day for us to vote on. I'm flagging the bad bills. I'm mapping out questions that I need to ask. I'm mapping out bullet points for floor speeches. And then I'm dividing the work and handing questions and talk points to members so that we can have an effective game plan once we hit the floor.
And I know Khalil has some questions already planned for you as well. Yes.
Yeah, just listening to a lot of the bills you plan on pushing forward, I really respect you for really doing the work. And I know being a Democrat in a red state, it's always an uphill battle. So I just wanted to give you props for that. But you had mentioned the skyrocketing of like the housing market, and I can't help but think of like the issue of homelessness in New Orleans and the recent sweeps that took place. And I talked to Councilmember Harris in one of my classes, and she mentioned how she had proposed a plan that would essentially solve the problem long term. And it would have costed like around $8 million. But that plan made it to like the governor's assistant, and it was like turned down. And they essentially spent double that money in doing the homeless encampment sweeps for the Super Bowl and for the Taylor Swift concert. So I just wanted to know, do you plan on like presenting any legislation addressing the homelessness, like just throughout Louisiana as a whole?
So in our delegation, Rep. Knox has kind of been leading on that issue. So I know he has some legislation dealing with it. But for me, it's more important that, the governor and his team work better with the city of New Orleans. Like you said, Councilmember Harris had a comprehensive plan that would have been able to address homelessness on a more long-term basis as opposed to a temporary Band-Aid, which is what we had during the Super Bowl and during Mardi Gras. It was essentially just a plan to remove a quote-unquote eyesore so that the visitors coming into New Orleans wouldn't see that. That was not humane, and the way it was executed, to me, was not done properly. There was little to no communication up front, and I've let the governor and his team know about that. And moving forward, I think if he really wants to help the city of New Orleans, then the city of New Orleans, our city council members need to be at the table discussing those solutions. And the big problem is that it cost about $20 million for that temporary facility, about $20 million. I mean, we could have done so much with that money in the city of New Orleans to address homelessness.
Yeah, and I see that. I'd like for you to just talk in general about the importance of the state legislature. You know, we know city government.
Oh, yeah.
And I look at so many different delegations from New Orleans, from Mark Murriel, from his administration, and others, and they've always had strong delegations that would come up to Baton Rouge. And some of the other cities have good delegations that come to Baton Rouge and talk about. I'd like for you to talk about the importance of state government to what's happening in everybody's life, because a lot of folks don't understand the relationship.
Yeah. So for me, I think state government is right now probably the most important level of government. You know, at the federal level, the Trump administration is trying to push a lot of decisions down to the state level. They want to get rid of the Department of Education and have states administer it. They want to get rid of FEMA and have states administer it. I mean, so it just makes it even more important to have a strong state legislature. On top of that, Doc, the city of New Orleans, East Baton Rouge Parish, they can do all the things that they want to improve the quality of life for people in their cities and in their parishes. And then the state legislature can come the next year and pass a preemption bill that says you can't do that. And so the state legislature has the authority to tell local government what they can and cannot do. And because of that, I think, it's very important for everybody to be aware of what's happening in Baton Rouge, to make sure that your representation knows where you stand on issues, to make sure your voices are heard, because you are the representative body in Baton Rouge, right? All of our districts in the House are about 45,000 people. When I go up to Baton Rouge, I'm supposed to represent those 45,000 people. So you need to make sure that your voices are heard so that your representatives can have an informed conscience when they make votes, when they carry legislation and whatnot, Doc.
Yes, you found a question that you may have as well, Kalia.
Yeah, just this one's just a little bit more of personal insight.
Yeah.
But what are some of your who are some of your political inspirations, nationally or locally?
Yeah, so nationally, I mean, obviously President Obama is huge, right? I think you have to include him on the list. I like people who do not relent and who keep fighting, right? So somebody like Rep. Clyburn, who's been around for forever and still has the passion in his heart and who keeps fighting. People like Elizabeth Warren, who never give up. I like the people who never lose sight of what they're doing in Washington, D.C., or if they're in the state legislature, or if they're at the local level, right? The focus has always have to be on the people. And so I like passion, I like fight, I like vigor. So Cory Booker, love Cory Booker.
Yeah.
I can't believe he did that speech. That is unheard of. It's still unbelievable to me.
And again, you come out of that Frederick Douglass school, agitate, and when you're relentless like that, you make a difference. And I know we assume everything, we assume so much, but just on our way out the door, you can just tell many of our listeners some things about your background, because you didn't just get there.
No.
It didn't just happen. You didn't just snap your fingers and bang, there you are.
Yeah, so I had an event last night. Somebody asked me the same question, so I'll give you the quick spiel on it. All right. So after college, I started working for a public relations firm. A guy who was a mentor of mine had created a startup company. All right. It was created in the physics department on Tulane's campus. It was dealing with polymers and biopharmaceuticals. I don't have a science background, Doc. So when he told me he wanted me to come lead the marketing efforts, I thought he was crazy, but he would not relent. He kept approaching me, so I decided to do it. And I was exposed to a whole world of economic diversification, technology, and the whole startup journey, and it was exciting. At some point, I got involved in local politics, and then I started following state politics, Doc. And I'm gonna ask you this question. Have you ever sat around a table with friends or family and started talking about problems and solutions? Have you ever done that?
That happens. Yo, yes.
I got tired.
That's what brings you into the fold.
I got tired of doing that. I got tired of talking to my friends about solutions and decided I wanted to be a policymaker.
Well, see, I know your family and your dad, good friends. Your uncle and I were in school together. May you rest in peace, Walter. Oh yeah,
Thank
we
you, Doc.
we go way back, and I know you come from good stock, and you understand. And so actually, this is just a natural. This is just what you do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like helping people, so
Yes.
it makes it easier. You know, it really does.
And to say the least. And any final comments you want to make to us before we exit? We have 30 seconds left. Yes.
Thank you for having me on the show, Doc. Congratulations, Kalia. I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. If I can ever help, let me know.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
yeah, that's Sacramento. And you can follow me on all aspects of social media. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
From the campus of Xavier University, WBOK Go and Equity Media Station.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. A federal judge has ruled against former Sacramento Kings announcer Grant Napier and his wrongful termination lawsuit